how do you make a company actually tell the truth about its money? It's a massive question, right? Well, today we're diving into this really radical experiment out of South Korea that tried to solve it by, basically flipping the whole system on its head. So let's set the stage here. In the mid-2010s, South Korea was in a tough spot. They were dealing with this, well, an epidemic of huge corporate accounting scandals. We're talking big, household name companies, and it just completely shattered public trust in the whole financial system. And look, this wasn't just a gut feeling people had. There were numbers to back it up. A major international ranking looked at accounting transparency in 63 countries, and South Korea, they came in 63rd, dead last. I mean, you can't get any worse than that. It was a full-blown crisis. So, what did the government do? They didn't just tinker around the edges, no way. They basically threw out the old rulebook and tried something drastic. Really drastic. And that's the big question we're asking today. Did this crazy idea actually work? All right, so what was this radical new law? It was a huge piece of legislation called the New External Audit Act, and the whole goal was to restore trust by forcing companies to be more honest. Okay, here's the core of it. The most game-changing part was this thing called mandatory auditor designation. Get this, for a 3-year stretch, companies couldn't choose their own auditor anymore. Instead, a government regulator just picked one for them. Can you imagine? Now, the thinking behind this is actually pretty simple. I mean, think about it. If you're an auditor, and the company you're supposed to be checking up on is the same one that writes your paycheck, well, you might not want to rock the boat too much, right? The goal here was to break that cozy relationship, cut those financial ties, and give the auditor real, true independence. Okay, but that brings up a really interesting problem. How do you even know if it's working? I mean, how can you possibly measure if an auditor is suddenly being tougher? You can't just, send them a survey. You need cold, hard data. And this is where the researchers got clever. They found the perfect clue. It's called an audit adjustment. See, in Korea, companies have to file their financial reports before the audit happens. So the audit adjustment is just the difference between what the company first claimed and the final corrected version after the auditor went through it. This is a great way to see it. On one side, you've got the company's first draft. On the other, the final report that goes public. And that space in between, all those corrections, that is the audit adjustment. That's our smoking gun. The best analogy really is like a teacher's red pen on an essay. If you get your paper back and it's covered in red ink, you know that teacher was being tough. It's the same idea here. More adjustments, more corrections, that means the auditor was being a lot more critical. And listen, we're not talking about tiny typos or rounding errors here. The study found that the average adjustment was a whopping 11.74% of a firm's net income. That's huge. These are major significant changes to the books. So the researchers crunched the numbers on over 10,000 firm years of data. They compared the companies with government-assigned auditors to the ones who still picked their own. So what did they find? Well, the short answer is yes. The law totally worked. It's really that simple. This radical experiment was a success. And the data really spells it out. Look at this. Firms under this new mandate were 7 percentage points more likely to have one of these big, significant audit adjustments. That's not random chance. That's a real, measurable impact. The law was definitely changing how auditors behaved. But this is where the story takes a really unexpected turn. Because when the researchers looked closer, the biggest impact wasn't happening where you'd expect it to. It was kind of weird. Okay, check this out. The chance of a big adjustment shot up by almost 10%, but it happened in the year before the new auditor was even on site. That's more than double the effect they saw in the actual year of the switch. So what in the world is going on here? How is that even possible? So the researchers considered a few things. Maybe it's just a fresh eye effect. But the real reason, the key to this whole mystery, comes down to this really powerful psychological idea called the peer review effect. And this breaks it down perfectly. Just imagine for a second, you're the auditor, you know you're about to get replaced. Then you find out the new guys coming in are from one of the huge, prestigious Big Four firms. What's your first thought? It's probably, oh man, they're gonna go over my work with a fine-tooth comb. You're scared they'll find something you missed and make you look bad. So what do you do in your final year? You do the toughest, most thorough audit of your life, just to make sure you're covered. So this peer review effect is amazing, right? It shows how powerful the anticipation of being checked can be. But the researchers had one last piece of the puzzle, the final proof that it was the law itself and nothing else causing all of this. Okay, so remember, this whole auditor assignment thing only lasted for 3 years. After that, it was back to business as usual. Companies could pick their own auditors again. So the big question is, what happened when the mandate went away? This table says it all. While the mandate was on, boom, a big, significant jump in tough audits. The second that 3-year period was over and the mandate was turned off, poof, the effect was gone. It just vanished. Things went right back to how they were before. This is what we call strong causal evidence. It means the improvement wasn't just a coincidence, it wasn't some other economic trend, it was the regulation, plain and simple. When the law was in effect, audit quality got better. When the law went away, so did the benefits. So, what's the big takeaway here? South Korea's experiment proved that, yeah, this kind of heavy-handed regulation can absolutely work. But maybe the most fascinating part isn't just that it worked, but how it worked. It wasn't just about the new auditor. It was about the old auditor's fear of being judged. And that leaves us with a really interesting question to chew on. When it comes to keeping corporations honest, is the threat of getting caught just as powerful as actually getting caught?